OLONDAVI VIOTEMBO means the keepers of time, or timekeepers, the keepers of history, the keepers of knowledge, the bodyguards of knowledge systems. It's a Mbundu phrase. Absolutely love the title, and also it helps me to kind of speak Mbundu, because there's a lot of us that speak a language, but we don't know how to write and read in that language. So most of my shows, I've been trying to title them in Mbundu, and also bridging that affinity between Bantu knowledge systems and Bantu languages. During the Honors of the Earth, I was very much worried about my mental state. I had a very traumatic birth, so I was very much interested in what was happening in my mind and the emotions I was feeling. I think Honors of the Earth was almost like ancestral work, and having conversations with women in my family about their experiences as well, and their experience with trauma. I was looking at fantasy trauma and the effects of fantasy trauma. Fantasy trauma kind of speaks about you creating a delusion in order for you to survive, it's a coping mechanism. I realized with the Black women in my family how important that coping mechanism was for them, because they needed to survive. And the things like trauma puts you in a cycle. Every time you are triggered, you kind of go right back into it, and then you iterate and try to pick yourself up. But these women went beyond that. They really used their trauma to strengthen themselves. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, I think it depends from individual to individual. But they really used those fantasies to kind of survive, civil war, to survive growing up in the military, to survive post-apartheid South Africa, to survive being foreign. And it's the word foreign, being foreign everywhere, because home is not home anymore because you were displaced, So this woman kind of created the community became their home. When people speak about the Pomfret community, Pomfret is not a fixed space anymore, even though the space is there. Pomfret is a community. For the OLONDAVI VIOTEMBO, I wanted to go a step further. I wanted to speak about the things around the emotions. Right after I gave birth, because I had a C-section, my mom had to heal me, basically. She was almost like my doula. My mom would wake up every day, 5 o'clock in the morning, and boil eucalyptus. Joburgers will know what I'm talking about, because it's all over Johannesburg. She'll boil a big pot while she's getting ready to go to work, and then she'll wake me up, and then she'll put a hot bath with sea salt. She used to put me in the sea salt and bathe me, and then afterwards she would steam me underneath the eucalyptus, and I could hear her humming and putting on her makeup before work while I'm sitting underneath the eucalyptus. And then afterwards she'll use that same water to massage my body, just to take the inflammation from the pregnancy off, and how healing, even just the aroma, how healing that was for me to have someone take care of me, and almost preparing me to take care of someone else. Growing up, we're taught to be a woman is strong. A woman is someone that, even though she's going through something tough, because everybody relies on her, especially the matriarchs in the family. So almost you're not allowed to show pain, or you're not allowed to show vulnerability, because that could potentially put you in danger. But then realizing that, these women actually do talk, and then they don't just talk with anybody. They have a community, they have a circle of women, a village. And I've always been part of that village, but as a child, not really as a woman, not in womanhood. And I remember my first initiation was the week before I had my traditional wedding. Not very a formal initiation type of thing. It was very much listen, you're about to get married. Clearly you know nothing about how to take care of a man, which is its own other thing. Come to us a week before your traditional wedding, and we're going to take you through a process and share this knowledge with you. And I met them. I met Sarita, I met Ngeve, I met Rosa, I met Angelina. Angelina is my mom. I met Madalena. Madalena is my grandmother. I didn't meet the grandmother, I didn't meet the mom. That whole week was a week of laughter, and women just laughing at each other and having a good time. And there were moments of seriousness where they were okay, this is how you do this for yourself. This is how you take care of your body. This is how you take care of your partner. This is how you take care of your child. And then there were moments where, you know, the funniest one was I went through, and I think it was one of the last 2 days, I went through like a sex education. And it was, and like seeing like my mom and my aunts like portray sexual positions like I didn't know. I was like, I know nothing about this. And like them laughing at themselves and be like, no, that's not how you do it. So when I was introduced to them in that way, I was just like, oh my God, like, why didn't I know you guys from the beginning? I knew them more as like they're human so they can make mistakes, but I didn't know them like, oh, this woman think about these things, and you know. So that world really changed the trajectory of my work. So for this show specifically, I also wanted, as I said, I wanted to engage with my audience a little bit more. So I bought some like household herbs like clove and turmeric and cayenne pepper and honey. And then obviously they are the secret herbs that I also put in the show. But like, you know, I call them secret herbs because this is very much a woman's world, a woman's knowledge system. So even when you speak about those things, like some conversations you don't have them with men, you know. For example, there are herbs that are used to sweeten, you know, your vaginal area, and these are seen as just like, oh, these are things that women know. An African woman will know exactly what I'm talking about, and these are just not conversations you have with men, you know. I didn't introduce some herbs in the exhibition, so I tried to introduce herbs that people are familiar with and things that they can easily get from like a supermarket or something. During my show in Berlin, someone asked me, isn't it like a juxtaposition to be Christian and to also have like African knowledge systems and to be like believe in African spirituality? And I'm like you need to understand the community I come from, where they're highly influenced by Catholicism, you know, because of the being colonized by the Portuguese, but also they had to hold on to who they are and who they were. So those paradoxes, I don't know if that's the right word, kind of had to marry each other. Christianity and African spirituality are not opposites to me, but they are things that kind of run parallel to each other. You know, for example, my mom, the woman in my family, when we're going through something, yes, we'll heal you with the herbs, but also we'll have midnight prayers. We'll wake up at midnight and pray for you and pour into you and bless you. I just grew up like that, not seeing them as opposites, but seeing them as like different tools that you can use to spiritually like help yourself, spiritually grow by using these different ways of thinking. I'll think about the work in that way, that I can go into the medical field, I can go into conspiracy theories about aliens, I can go into religion, I can go into spirituality, and I can go into femininity and kind of marry those different ideologies and discourses together to build the body of work that I've created. So there's a lot of like humor in the paintings as well, like characters falling apart and characters in this beautiful, strong poses, characters being vulnerable and laughing, and some of them looking dangerous. I always say like the paintings are like my fantasy. Whatever's happening in my head is like, they're not like planned. So what I do in my studio is like I photocopy or I print out like a lot of images of women in different poses doing different things, and then I have like a board where I staple all the images, and then I sit and I just start and I create, and you know, it's a very fun process, a process of play more than a process of like I want to show these people this thing. You know, when I went to Angola, I went to the Anthropology Museum, and obviously Angola has like not like a big history, but there's like a small part of Angolan culture has like African masks, and I was very interested in that because most of the masks that I use in my work are from like Congo and West Africa, and most of the masks that I use, you know, maybe because I specifically chose like feminine masks, a lot of them I use for fertility or speak to a deity that deals with fertility. So I wanted to kind of explore what does like the Angolan cultural groups. What are their masks? And I was privileged to go to Angola for a month, and then I ran into like the masquerades. I think that's what they're called, masquerades, and how like a lot of the Angolan masquerades are made out of like grass and some like organic fabrics. There's one with like a really small face, but it has like this massive beard made out of grass. I absolutely love them. They were like beautiful objects. And then I married that with like the images that I've seen of Congolese masquerades, and listening to my father's story of like being chased by these masquerades during like the festivals, and being completely terrified of them, but also having like a deep respect for them, because yes, they are deities, but they also speak about a certain ancestral realm. But when my dad spoke about them, there was also like a playfulness, because they will chase you and you kind of know who's the uncle underneath it. I don't know much about my Congolese heritage, but like that was like almost like a bridge between the two, the Angolan and Congolese heritage, that I could tap into. So those were the images I was looking at when creating the sculptures, the soft sculptures. So what I wanted to do with the sculptures is, in the beginning, I wanted to recreate some of the fabrics that I had on the paintings, because I had so much fun creating little patterns on the characters and whatever clothing they are wearing. And now I'll put stickers and glittery gemstones and buttons. So I wanted to recreate that in like a more 3D version. I was not quite sure where it was going, and then I went into like a fabric shop. At the time, my mom was also started crocheting, and I went with her to kind of buy some crochet material, and I was obsessed. It was like a child in a candy shop, being in that fabric shop and seeing like shelves and shelves of different crochet threads. And I'm like, oh, I could use this to create my patterns on my paintings. In the beginning, they were supposed to be like this flat, as I said, almost like textured 3D canvases. And then I ended up getting some mannequins. I'm like, oh, it'll be interesting to turn them into costumes that I can perform in. So I'm like, okay, maybe I can make like a dress for one of my performances and then take it there. And then while I was working on the mannequin, because I'm not a tailor, I'm not a designer, I'm like, oh, I can't remove this thing from this mannequin. Like, I can't remove it. This is where it is. So I decided like, oh, it'll be interesting to actually create the character as a whole, rather than just create like the clothing. And then in the beginning, I was gonna even like make like clay masks. There are some little clay masks, and they were like little mock-ups for what I wanted to create for the face of the characters. And I've decided to incorporate them into the sculptures. Then I went into, let me try making the whole character in this fabric. And then that's how the sculptures kind of became this whole like fabric, soft sculpture figures. So that's how it started. It didn't start with, oh, I want to create this thing. It was very much like a journey of experimenting in the studio. And this is the result of it. It's interesting, people are saying like, oh, Teresa, there's so much life in the sculptures. I'm like, yeah, because there's so much blood in it. I stabbed myself 100 times making this making the sculptures, because I was like, literally, I bought like a few needles and attaching every single part and creating the patterns as I go along, and adding. I don't think I really thought about what the audience wants to take from the exhibition. I really wanted to share my experience and my journey. Same thing with the Owners of the Earth. It was almost like, look guys, I'm going through this thing, and I get super excited, and also to experience it from my perspective, which is less more of like a shaman, or I'm not doing a herbalism course, or I don't have, it could be debated, I don't have a calling. I'm literally looking at this as like, oh, a daughter, sitting underneath my grandmother and her telling me this thing, and I'm like, really? Okay, this is fun, and laughing and giggling, and also incorporating whatever else is going on in my life.